All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So there was, frankly, in my opinion, a lot of really impressive, really good performances from the Jets-Bucks preseason game, right? I thought Zaire Barnes looked great, right? Especially in the first half. He only finished with 4 tackles, on the day, but he had those 4 tackles in the first half, just flying around the field. And, Barnes is a guy who I think, coming in as a late round pick, he has a chance to make this team potentially as the 4th linebacker here, behind obviously Mosley, Quincy Williams, and Sherwood. So I thought Barnes looked really good. I was impressed with Jason Brownlee, 4 catches, 50 yards, actually led the team in catches, but just looked fast, looked strong, looked big as well, just had some solid size to him. Ashton Davis, I mean, to me, he should get the game ball on the defensive side. I mean, just flying around the field, tackles for loss. I believe he had 3 tackles for loss in the day. It was crazy. I felt like that was definitely the best game I've seen from Davis in his career with the Jets so far. But the one player that I want to really highlight here is Mekhi Becton, right? And for obvious reasons. As Jets fans here, we've all seen the Saleh Hard Knock speech, right, kind of laying into the offensive line. We've heard Aaron Rodgers comment about the pass protection at tackle. We know all these different guys are dealing with injuries, whether it's AVT, Dwayne Brown, Laken Tomlinson, right? And even Mekhi Becton to a certain degree when we look at his knee. And, lately, joint practice reports, training camp practice reports, there's been a lot of negativity. And just last night, I don't know about you guys, but last night it was just really cool to finally get something positive, right? A bright spot on the O-line. Becton was flat out awesome, and I was pumped for him, right? I mean, this is a guy who's just missed so much time, and I feel like it's one thing after another, whether it's like the size concerns, whether it's the knee, whether it's like the back-to-back season-ending injuries. With Becton, it's just like, can we get him on the field? Because if we can get him on the field and he's 100% and he is healthy, he could be a really good player. I was a bit concerned with Becton lining up at right tackle, given that he's only had just a few practices under either 1 or 2 practices at right tackle under his belt. So I was interested in how that dynamic was going to look, right, Becton on the right side. But with that said, I felt like he looked flat out awesome. He was just a road grader in the running game, opening up these massive lanes for backs. He didn't allow a sack or even a single pressure in 18 pass blocking snaps. And then on the ground, according to Zach Rosenblatt here of The Athletic, the Jets running game, 8 overall carries with Becton on the field. It equated to 76 rushing yards without Mekhi Becton, 8 carries, 29 yards on the ground. But outside of that, I felt like Mekhi looked strong out there. And of course, we have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt. You can make the argument a lot of the players that Becton was facing last night aren't going to be starters. They might not even make the Buccaneers roster. We do have to throw that in there. It is preseason, right? We have to be fair. We have to speak about the facts. But with that said, I do feel like it's relevant to talk about. Obviously, the Jets have had struggles at tackle, but as much as I would like for this to change, it's not like Max Mitchell, it's not like Billy Turner are just blowing defenses out of the water, just completely manhandling the Carolina Panthers' first team in joint practices, or the Buccaneers' first team in joint practices, or even looking really impressive against the Jets' defensive line. There's been some struggles there. There's been ups. There's been downs. There's been some good days. There's been some okay days, and then there's been some not so good days. And I feel like as fans here, we're looking for something positive, right? We just can't continue with negative storylines surrounding the tackle position, every single day, every single week. That's just not going to fly, especially in the regular season, right? I mean, to quickly rattle off some defenses here that the Jets are these are defenses, these are teams that the Jets are going to have to play in the first half of the season. Think about these units from not only just a personnel standpoint, right, going up against great edge rushers and whatnot, but also the defensive coaches, whether it's a defensive head coach or a defensive coordinator. But the Jets have got to play the Buffalo Bills right out of the game. What are the Bills known for, specifically on the defense side of the football, right? Of course, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, but it's having a deep defensive line. They got pass rushers all over the place with new acquisition Leonard Floyd, Von Miller, obviously, and Oliver on the inside, Greg Rousseau, former first-round pick, and more, right? Matt Milano at linebacker. I mean, the Buffalo Bills have a great defense, so we played them right out of the game. We got Dan Quinn and the Dallas Cowboys next. Micah Parsons, arguably the best pass rusher in the entire game, with, of course, Stephon Gilmore, Trevon Diggs at corner. Like, Dallas, to me, is going to have a great defense this upcoming season. Who else? The New England Patriots, Matt Judon, Bill Belichick. We got the Kansas City Chiefs, so that's just going to be a shootout right out of the gate. We have to play, who else? The Denver Broncos. Everybody knows how legit that defense is. Of course, the offense is still up in the air, but again, just looking at the defense, they are a stacked unit. And then, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles, the team that barely lost the Super Bowl, a team that, has pass rushers all over the place on the defensive line. Their interior defensive tackles are absolutely elite. Absolutely elite, especially with Carter coming in too. And he was, expected to go number 1 overall. So, I think the Jets, of course, have to be sure what they're with what they're doing on the offensive line. I don't want to be in a position where we're, rolling the dice at numerous positions. So the bottom line is this. I understand that it was a preseason game. I understand that Becton wasn't, going up against the Vita Veas, the Shaq Barretts of the world, right? Going up against the Bucs first team. But it was fantastic to see a bright spot, see somebody go out there, have a solid performance at a position where I feel like a lot of fans are getting a little concerned with where we're at, in training camp and in the preseason, right? Yes, we still have multiple weeks before the start of the regular season. Obviously, we kick off September 11th. So still, a nice chunk of time here. But the days are going by, right? The season's going to be here before we know it. I don't want to be in a position where we're still having question marks a week and a half from now, right? Saleh actually talked about that in a press conference this week where he said that if it takes that long, if it takes, up until the Bills game, to find or to figure out the starting the best 5, right? Because that's kind of the idea that the Jets coaching staff is approaching this whole thing with. That's how long it's going to take. And for me, it's like, man, I at least want, a week and a half of the same offensive line, some continuity there, and not guys flip-flopping positions. The versatility is great, don't get me wrong, but I'm hoping by this week we have our solidified 5 offensive tackles. And Dwayne Brown's injury, of course, comes into play here because he's right now, for me at least, the projected starting left tackle. So that one, I guess, is a bit still up in the air. But in regards to Saleh's comments after the game regarding Mekhi Becton, he said that Becton looked good. He played with a lot of energy. It was good to see. But when asked about Becton rolling with the ones this week in practice, he said that they're going to look at everything as a coaching staff and it's somewhat case by case. So if I'm Saleh, if I'm, Keith Carter, Todd Downing, Nathaniel Hackett, if I'm an offensive mind on this staff, I want to at least see what Mekhi Becton can do with the ones. I know the knee concerns pop up. I know you don't want to rush him back, but even if it's in a limited role, I still want to see Becton rolling with the ones because quite frankly, to have this amount of question marks surrounding the tackle position, and to have a former first-round pick just continuously rolling with the twos, after last night's performance, I think, to me at least, he deserves a promotion in a sense, right? I don't think Billy Turner or Max Mitchell, either of those guys have done enough to wall off Becton and say, no, this is my starting position and you are nowhere close to where I am. So that's just kind of my take on it. But yeah, I was pumped up for Mekhi. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, go Jets.